Names have always had a significant effect on daily life throughout the centuries. Names could have indicated so many things in one person's life. However, what is very rich and very intriguing is the Arabic naming system, which we can see evidence of from pre-Islamic Arabia stretching into the Middle Ages. So let's have a look at names in the medieval Arab world. Welcome to the Golden Middle Age. The naming system from the medieval Arab world is very different to Western traditions. It can also be quite complicated to understand because there are so many components of a name. In fact, names can be so long that they could take you literally forever to pronounce. For example, let's look at a famous medieval scholar called Ibn Asakir. If we want to be very precise, his actual full name is, and you need to take a deep breath for this, Abu al-Qasim Ali ibn Abi Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Hibatullah ibn Abdullah ibn al-Husayn al-Dimashqi al-Shafi'i al-Muhaddith al-Hafiz Thiqat al-Din. Now, even half of that is long, and imagine going to someone and saying hi and then proceeding to say a name as long as that. You know, that's a mission. And so this is why the Arabic naming system included so many other things than just first names. So what did it mainly consist of? I think we can definitely narrow it down to 5 different components. So these 5 different things would be the Ism, the Kunya, the Nasab, the Laqab, and the Nisba. Yeah, I mean, we are used to having names and surnames and that's it, but no, medieval Arabs were on a whole nother level when it came to this stuff. So to translate these different aspects, the Ism would be the name. The Kunya would be the honorific name or title of the person. The Nasab is the genealogy or the patronymic. The Nisba would be the equivalent of a surname or inscription. And finally, the Laqab would be the nickname or what someone is known for. So let's briefly discuss these 5 different aspects of a name, starting off with the Ism. So the Ism, or the name, is what someone is actually called at birth. The name of the medieval Arabs was influenced a lot by the Islamic tradition. Before Islam came into Arabia, you would find that classical Arabic names are familiar. For example, Uthman, Ja'far, but also the Arabs would name after the prophets of God, which they would have believed in, such as Ibrahim or Abraham. For females, Hind or Layla could have been common. But after the introduction of Islam, Arabs and even Muslims in general started to name their children after great Islamic figures. The first Islamic figure that obviously comes to mind is Muhammad, the Holy Prophet Muhammad. But also derivatives of that name would be Ahmad, Mahmud, which were also very common. Now, because of the Sunni Shia different schools of thought in the religion of Islam, Shia Muslims would preferably name their children in the medieval times, even up until today actually, after the household of the Prophet. So names like Ali, Hassan, Hussein, Khadija, Fatima would be common amongst them. Sunni Muslims in the Middle Ages would lean towards names like Omar or Uthman. However, this is not to say that Sunni Muslims didn't name their children after the household of the Prophet Muhammad. There are many famous Sunni scholars that have names like Ali, but I just mentioned this to show that the kind of trend could have been prevalent in the medieval Islamic world. Finally, the other type of name that you would find in common is names that would begin with Abd, which translates to slave or servant. This is because the most honorific status a Muslim can attain is to be the servant or slave of Allah, of God. So it would usually start with Abd and then a name of Allah would follow. So for example, Abdullah or Abd al-Jabbar or Abd al-Aziz, which usually means servant of God or one of the names of God. And this is again very common up until today. Now, moving on to the kunya. As we said earlier, the kunya would be the title or honorific name of someone. Having a kunya would be very important, and it usually is the father of or mother of, and then the name of your child. So, for example, let's say I have a son and I call him, I don't know, Ali. My kunya would be Abu Ali, father of Ali. Everyone had to have a kunya, and this would usually be an honorific title, especially if your son is, went on to achieve great things. And if we look at the prime example for Muslim Arabs in the medieval times, again, the Prophet Muhammad, he was known as Abul Qasim, father of Qasim. Unfortunately, his son Qasim did pass away at a young age, and he also was known as Abu Zahra, the father of Zahra, his daughter, Fatima. So if there was no son, it would usually be father of and then the name of the daughter. But then if a son was born later on, it changed to the son's name. So it was a patriarchal society, and it's just, how things were back in the Middle Ages. Now, the Nasab. This is what formed the full name. The Ism and the Nasab would be the foundation of the name and what everyone would know you as. The Nasab is the genealogy, so it would be who you are the son of. Ibn means son of, so you would be Ibn someone. And if you were a daughter, it would be Bint. Bint someone, daughter of. So if you understand what I mean. In a society where your roots were regarded as very important, it was mandatory for people to know who you were the son or daughter of. Let's look at a few examples of famous personalities in Islamic and Arab history. Again, starting with the Prophet Muhammad, he was known as Muhammad ibn Abdullah. So Muhammad, son of Abdullah. His cousin Ali was Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ali, son of Abu Talib. Now, if you didn't know who your father was, which was probably a dishonorable thing because it means that you were a bastard, they would say Ibn Abi, son of his father. Nevertheless, the Nasab would not always necessarily be son of whoever your father was. Sometimes it would be your tribe, clan, or the place you came from. A good example would be Ibn Khaldun. He was a famous medieval scholar and known for his contribution to the Islamic Golden Age. His name was Ibn Khaldun, so son of Khaldun, because the tribe he came from was called Banu Khaldun, so the people of Khaldun, or the sons of Khaldun. So it wasn't his father's name, but it's because he came from that place, or from that tribe, he was known as Ibn Khaldun. Okay, so we've spoken about 3 different aspects of naming so far. I know, even the simple things like names have much deeper roots in the medieval Arab world. So now let's speak about the Nisba, which is the ethnic origin of someone, or it could be someone's religious affiliation or his occupation. This was also very significant in identifying someone. It could be considered someone's, or the equivalent of someone's surname, because it usually does come at the end of someone's name after the actual ism and nasab, so the name and who you are the son of. And if we look at the name of Ibn Asakir, which we said at the start, we used him as an example. He is a medieval scholar. Don't worry, by the way, I'm not going to say his full name again because it's just too long. But he has a few nisbas in his name. For example, Al-Dimashq. This means the one from Damascus, which already shows us that he was probably born or raised in Damascus. He also has Al-Shafi'i, and this is a religious affiliation, which means he follows the Shafi'i school of thought, which is a branch of Sunni Islam, or a legal school, not a branch. And he also has Al-Muhaddith, and this describes his occupation, which means he was an Islamic scholar of Hadith tradition. Now, finally, the Laqab. The Laqab was a nickname, usually given to someone in order for him to have legitimacy and highlight their qualities. A lot of the early Arab empires, like the Abbasids and Fatimids, would use a lot of laqabs to make themselves more, prestigious, and it's kind of like a propaganda thing, isn't it? So to mention a few examples, the Abbasid caliphs and rulers would use a lot of laqabs in their names. There was Harun al-Rashid, al-Ma'mun, al-Mutawakkil, and the list goes on and on and on. And these laqabs mean, al-Mutawakkil would mean the one who relies on God, Rashid means the rightly guided, so on and so forth. Whether they were actually what they called themselves is a completely another discussion. But there was also a famous vizier for the Seljuk Empire in the medieval times. He was known as Nizam al-Mulk, which again wasn't his actual name, it was his laqab, or what he was known for. And it translates, or roughly translates, to the organizer of the kingdom. So these were important especially important for political and military leaders in the ranks of the government. But this was even used for holy personalities in the religion of Islam. For example, Prophet Abraham is known as Khalil Allah, the friend of Allah or God. And the Prophet Muhammad is known as Habibullah. So laqabs were very important as it was a continuation of not just Arab, but also Islamic tradition. Now we have reached the end of the video, and as you can see, there's so many different factors and different aspects of a traditional Arabic name, especially in the medieval times. And I think there are many different reasons for this. Firstly, the Arabs were very much into their poetry and their eloquence. And in order to kind of present yourself, for example, when you go to war, you would usually give your title and who you were and who you were the son of. So it was important that these things were established and that you had titles which gave you honor when going to war. Even if you were not going to war, if you were just known as someone, it would very much kind of, give you more credibility. So this was, again, very important for the Arabs as they were a people of, poetry, eloquence, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, do make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also please do keep commenting on the videos. I love reading your comments and I love reading the recommendations you give. So if you're specifically interested in seeing something, do leave a comment because I really do take on your ideas. Plan to make videos on them in the future. So once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you again very soon.